You feel it, don't you? That subtle, stinging sensation in the back of your throat when someone cuts you off mid-sentence. That hollow exhaustion that settles in your chest after you've spent an hour defending your reputation against a petty insult. You are bleeding authority day by day, breath by breath, because you are too available. You operate on the frequency of the masses, believing that to be heard, you must speak, and to be respected, you must react. But in the architecture of power, reaction is a confession of weakness. It is a signal to the world that someone else holds the remote control to your emotions. You are an open book in a world of predators, and they are reading every line of your vulnerability. You react, therefore you are controlled. You are the pawn that moves because the player willed it. Today, we stop the bleeding. We are closing the book and locking the vault. You are about to undergo a fundamental restructuring of your social presence. You will learn the art of becoming a ghost in a room full of noise, a void that consumes the energy of others without yielding a single drop of your own. By the end of this blueprint, you won't just be ignoring people. You will be commanding the very atmosphere of every room you enter through the sheer weight of your silence. You will move from the frantic desperation of the common man to the untouchable, enigmatic sovereignty of Thomas Shelby. This is not about being rude. It is about being unreachable. While the modern world mistakes Tommy Shelby's silence for a mere personality trait, you will understand it for what it truly is. The tactical application of the 16th century virtue. What Shelby mastered in the smoke of Birmingham, Niccolò Machiavelli codified in the courts of Italy. It is the art of dissimulation, the ability to hide your intent behind a mask of chilling indifference. If you have finally decided to stop being a pawn and start being the player, if you are ready to trade your need to be heard for the power to be feared, comment "I am the storm" below. Subscribe now to join the inner circle of those who choose to rule in the shadows of silence. The first rule of the Shelby hierarchy is deceptively simple, yet it is the foundation upon which empires are built. Never interrupt an enemy when they are making a mistake by talking. To understand this, we must step into the lion's den, Thomas Shelby's office in the heart of Birmingham. The air is thick with the scent of expensive tobacco and the heavy metallic tension of an impending execution. Luca Changretta, the sophisticated but lethal Sicilian-American mobster, has entered the room. He moves with a flamboyant, predatory grace, his tailored suit a sharp contrast to the grit of the Shelby counting house. Luca is there to deliver a death sentence, the Black Hand. He speaks, he mocks, he gestures with his toothpick, laying out his vendetta with the theatrical flair of a man who believes he has already won. He expects a plea, a threat, or at the very least a flicker of fear in the eyes of the man across the desk. But look at Thomas Shelby. He does not move. He does not shift in his chair to accommodate the intruder's presence. He remains a statue of Birmingham steel. While Luca fills the room with words, Tommy creates a tactical void. He sits there, a cigarette burning slowly between his fingers, his eyes fixed on Luca with a gaze that is neither angry nor afraid. It is simply empty. By saying nothing, Tommy is conducting a masterclass in Machiavellian strategy. Niccolò Machiavelli taught in The Prince that a leader must be a fox to recognize the traps set by his enemies. The most dangerous trap in any social interaction is the invitation to speak. When you speak, you reveal your hand. You reveal your tone, your insecurities, and your level of intelligence. By maintaining a total verbal vacuum, Tommy forces Luca to fill the silence. And in that desperate need to fill the void, Luca reveals his arrogance, his methodology, and his timeline. He tries to fill the silence with bravado, but without a reaction from Tommy to push against, Luca's threats begin to lose their edge. He is shadowboxing with a ghost, and the ghost is winning. In the modern world, the common man is terrified of silence. He views a pause in conversation as a wound that must be stitched shut with mindless chatter. He babbles to feel safe, to feel included, to ensure no one is angry with him. The man of power, the Shelby, recognizes that silence is not a void to be filled, but a weapon to be wielded. The most potent tool in this arsenal is the 4-second pause. When someone asks you a pointed question or attempts to undermine you in a professional setting, do not answer immediately. Count to 4 in your head while maintaining unwavering eye contact. This 4-second window is where the other person's confidence goes to die. They will begin to second-guess their own words. They will wonder if they've offended you, or worse, if they've bored you. By the time you choose to speak, if you choose to speak at all, the power dynamic has already shifted. You have forced them to fold before the cards were even dealt. Furthermore, you must master the art of eye contact without verbal acknowledgement. In the zadrez social of your career or your social circle, people will often throw bait at you, sarcastic remarks, subtle digs, or loud opinions designed to provoke a response. The common man bites every time. He argues, he explains, he defends. The Shelby simply looks. He acknowledges the person's existence with a cold, steady gaze, but he refuses to validate their words with a verbal reply. This is the ultimate form of strategic disdain. It signals that while you see them, they are not significant enough to warrant the expenditure of your breath. You are starving them of reaction fuel. Without your reaction, their attempt to dominate or diminish you withers and dies. You become the predator who does not bark at the dog. You simply watch it until it realizes its own irrelevance and stops. To apply this today, you must cultivate a sovereign indifference to the noise around you. If someone insults you in a meeting or a social gathering, do not sharpen your tongue for a comeback. Instead, look at them for 3 slow seconds. Let the silence hang in the air like a heavy fog, and then simply return to your task or turn to someone else as if the interjection never occurred. You are not ignoring them out of a lack of social skills. You are strategically deleting their influence from your reality. You are signaling that your internal state is a sovereign territory that no outside force can invade without your express permission. This is how you transform from a reactive subject into a calculated ruler. The masses fear the silence because they have nothing inside to sustain them. The man of power loves the silence because it is the only place where he is truly free to plan his next move. Be the fox, be the ghost, be the void. In the empire of the mind, the one who speaks the least is usually the one who owns the room. The second layer of your transformation involves the construction of an impenetrable psychological fortress, the armor of indifference. In the cutthroat world of the Peaky Blinders, emotions are not just personal experiences, they are tactical liabilities. To understand the power of emotional disconnect, we must observe Thomas Shelby in the presence of Tatiana Petrovna, the exiled Russian duchess who represents the very essence of chaotic, unpredictable madness. Tatiana is a predator of the mind. She uses shock, sensuality, and erratic behavior to destabilize those around her. She plays with loaded guns and lives on the edge of a psychological cliff, expecting everyone to either fall with her or reach out to save her. She thrives on the reactions of others, using their shock or desire as a tether to control them. But when she stands before Thomas Shelby, she meets a stone wall. There is a specific moment in their dangerous courtship where she attempts to provoke him with her wildness, pushing the boundaries of what a common man could tolerate or ignore. Tommy sits there, the smoke of his cigarette drifting through the air of his opulent but cold estate. He does not flinch when she screams. He does not blush when she is provocative, and he does not offer a single word of comfort when she plays the victim. He refuses to be a spectator to her drama. By withholding his reaction, he renders her entire arsenal of psychological weapons completely powerless. He isn't just ignoring her words. He is ignoring the very frequency she operates on. In Tommy's mind, every reaction is a confession of vulnerability. If you show anger, you show what can hurt you. If you show lust, you show what can buy you. If you show fear, you show what can break you. Tommy shows nothing, and in that void, he becomes the absolute sovereign of the interaction. This is the living embodiment of the Machiavellian principle that men should be either treated generously or destroyed. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that half measures and lukewarm reactions are the hallmarks of a weak ruler. If an individual, be it a rival, a toxic partner, or a chaotic colleague, is not worth the effort of total destruction or the investment of genuine alliance, they are not worth a single drop of your emotional energy. Indifference is a form of soft destruction. It is the act of deciding that someone's attempts to provoke you are beneath the notice of the state that is your mind. Machiavelli's prince does not waste his virtue on trivialities. He saves his fire for the battles that matter. By adopting this cold, calculated indifference, you are signaling that you are the puppeteer of your own pulse. You are no longer a puppet that dances when the world pulls the strings of your ego. In the modern landscape of social chess, the common man is a slave to his need to be liked. He is constantly adjusting his behavior, his words, and his facial expressions to please those around him or to defend himself against the slightest criticism. This makes him predictable and, therefore, easily manipulated. To break this cycle, you must adopt the gray rock method with a Shelby-esque intensity. You must become as uninteresting and unresponsive as a gray rock to those who seek to drain your energy. This is not about being boring. It is about being strategically irrelevant to the predators of drama. When someone tries to draw you into a conflict or a gossiping circle, maintain a flat tone. Do not raise the pitch of your voice, do not use colorful language, and do not offer personal opinions. Your lack of heat will freeze the room's aggression. Applying this in your career or high-stakes relationships requires a total detachment of your ego from the outcome of the conversation. When a superior tries to intimidate you, or a peer tries to rattle you with a passive-aggressive remark, observe them with the clinical curiosity of a doctor examining a patient. Do not internalize the insult. Instead, look at the mechanics of their attempt to hurt you. Why are they doing this? What insecurity of theirs are they trying to cover? By analyzing the interaction instead of reacting to it, you maintain your sovereignty. You are the sovereign, and the sovereign does not argue with the peasant. He simply decides whether the peasant's noise is worth the trouble of silence. This is the armor that makes you untouchable. It is the realization that your attention is the most valuable currency you possess, and you will no longer spend it on those who have not earned it. Moving further into the architecture of power, we encounter the third block, controlled absence. To the common man, being available is seen as a sign of being helpful or popular. To the strategist, constant availability is the fastest route to becoming common. Thomas Shelby understood that the power of a leader is often found in his absence rather than his presence. In the early days of the expansion of the Shelby Company Limited, Tommy was a ghost. He would disappear from the garrison, leave Birmingham without notice, and retreat into the Black Country, or the confines of his private office. While his brothers, Arthur and John, were the visible loud fist of the Peaky Blinders, Tommy was the invisible mind. Because he was rarely seen and never fully understood, a legend began to grow around him. His family and his enemies alike would spend their nights speculating on his whereabouts, his plans, and his next move. In that speculation, Tommy's power grew exponentially. Familiarity breeds contempt, as Machiavelli noted with surgical precision. The more people see of you, the more they believe they have your measure. The more they know your habits, your routines, and your weaknesses, the less they fear you. Machiavelli taught that a prince must maintain a level of majesty and mystery to avoid being despised. By deliberately removing yourself from the digital and physical noise of the masses, you create a vacuum of information that people will inevitably fill with their own fears and respect. You are not hiding. You are practicing selective availability. You are signaling that your time is a rare commodity, found only by those you deem worthy of your presence. This is the psychology of the closed door, the understanding that what is behind the door is always more intriguing and threatening than what is out in the open. In today's world, we are living through an epidemic of overexposure. We are always on, tethered to our devices, reacting to every notification and every social demand. We have become accessible to everyone at any time, which has effectively reduced our value to zero. To regain your Shelby-esque sovereignty, you must implement the Ghost Protocol. This means systematically removing yourself from the non-essential digital noise. Stop being the first to reply to every group chat. Stop posting every detail of your life on social media. Stop being the person who is always available for a quick coffee or a chat. When you disappear, you force people to confront the void you've left behind. They begin to wonder if they've offended you, if you've moved on to bigger things, or if you are simply too busy building an empire to notice them. The application of this power move in the modern world is simple, but brutal. For the next 24 hours, do not reply to any non-essential message. Do not explain your absence. Do not check in to show you are still there. Let the silence do the work for you. Let them sit in the discomfort of not knowing. This creates a psychological shift where people begin to value your attention more, because it is no longer guaranteed. When you do finally choose to reappear, your words will carry 10 times the weight because they are rare. You are teaching the world how to treat you by setting a high price on your presence. You are transitioning from the available man who is used by others to the unreachable man who is sought after by leaders. Remember, Thomas Shelby didn't become the king of Birmingham by being everyone's friend. He became king by being the man who wasn't there until he needed to be. Rule from the shadows of your own absence, and let the world realize that your silence is far more expensive than their noise. The fourth pillar of your psychological ascension is the implementation of strategic disdain. In the chaotic ecosystem of social status, attention is the ultimate currency, and the most devastating way to bankrupt an opponent is to refuse to acknowledge their currency altogether. There is a brutal wisdom in the rule: do not give a dog a name if you intend to ignore its bark. To name something is to give it a place in your reality. To argue with something is to grant it equality. Thomas Shelby understood that to maintain the sovereignty of the Peaky Blinders, he had to be the one who decided who was a player and who was merely background noise. We see this masterfully executed in his early interactions with the local police and the looming shadow of Inspector Campbell. Imagine the damp, soot-stained streets of Small Heath. The local constabulary, men who have known the Shelby name for generations, attempt to exert their authority through threats of raids and arrests. They shout, they bluster, and they try to corner Tommy in the muddy alleyways of his own territory. A common man would react with hostility or fear. A common criminal would offer a bribe or a snarl. Tommy Shelby does neither. He treats their presence as if it were a minor, albeit slightly annoying, weather pattern. When they speak to him, he continues walking, his eyes fixed on a point far beyond their immediate perimeter. He does not stop, he does not look them in the eye, and he certainly does not dignify their petty power trips with a response. By treating the local police as background noise, he effectively strips them of their badge's power. He is signaling that his world operates on a level where their laws are merely suggestions that he hasn't found time to read yet. This is the strategic application of Niccolò Machiavelli's counsel in The Prince, where he suggests that a ruler ought to show himself a patron of ability. By extension, the inverse is true. To show attention to the mediocre and the petty is to become a patron of mediocrity. Machiavelli understood that the masses judge by appearances and outcomes. If the sovereign lowers himself to argue with a peasant, the masses no longer see a sovereign and a peasant. They see two men arguing in the mud. By ignoring the barking dogs of Birmingham, Tommy categorizes them as being beneath the state of the Shelby organization. He reserves his focus, his energy, and his acknowledgement for the real threats, the Inspector Campbells, the Billy Kimbers, the Sabinis. He knows that in the architecture of power, acknowledging a small threat only gives it the fuel it needs to grow into a large one. In the modern Zadrez social, you are constantly surrounded by people who will try to pull you into their mud. These are the colleagues who make snide remarks during lunch, the internet trolls who crave a reaction to feel alive, and the acquaintances who use passive aggression to test your boundaries. The common man falls into the trap every time. He feels the need to set the record straight or defend his honor. He engages in the argument, and in doing so, he grants the other person the very thing they desire: a seat at his table. You must build an invisible wall. You must learn to categorize interactions into threats and distractions. A threat requires a calculated, lethal response. A distraction requires only your silence. When you refuse to lower your level to argue, you aren't just winning the argument. You are negating the other person's right to have an argument with you. You are asserting that your time and your peace are sovereign territories that their petty provocations cannot enter. To apply this strategic disdain today, look at the people who are currently trying to agitate you. The next time someone tries to start a petty argument or bait you into a defense of your choices, do not look for a clever comeback. Simply say, "I have more important things to focus on right now," and walk away. Do not look back to see their reaction. Do not wait for their reply. The act of walking away without a backward glance is the coldest form of control. It communicates that they have been weighed, measured, and found utterly insignificant. You are the architect of your own attention. By choosing what you ignore, you are choosing what you become. In a world of noise, The man who can look a provocation in the face and see only empty space is the man who truly holds the scepter of power. As we move deeper into the strategy of Thomas Shelby, we reach the fifth block, breaking the rhythm through reactive sovereignty. Most people operate on a predictable rhythmic cycle of action and reaction. If someone shouts, they shout back. If someone asks a question, they answer it. This predictability is the leash that the world uses to lead the common man around. Thomas Shelby, however, is the master of the void and fire strategy. If his enemies expect a fight, he gives them a void, a cold, empty silence that makes them overextend. If they expect him to be passive and silent, he gives them fire, a sudden, overwhelming display of authority that leaves them reeling. This is the ultimate subversion of expectations, and nowhere is it more evident than in the legendary confrontation with Alfie Solomons. Picture the room, a tense, volatile space where the smell of rum and blood is never far away. Alfie Solomons, the erratic and brilliant leader of the Jewish gang, is in one of his theatrical rages. He is screaming, he is pacing, he is using his massive presence and his chaotic language to dominate the atmosphere. He has crossed a line, and he expects Tommy to react with either fear or fury. He expects a negotiation, a plea for mercy, or an explosive retaliation. Tommy Shelby, however, sits perfectly still. He is drinking his tea, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he were alone in a quiet library, rather than in a room with a man who could order his death at any second. Tommy is not ignoring Alfie out of fear. He is ignoring the rhythm that Alfie is trying to impose on the room. He refuses to dance to Alfie's music. By remaining seated and silent during the storm of Alfie's shouting, Tommy forces Alfie to eventually run out of breath. He makes Alfie's theatricality look like a tantrum, and his own silence look like the only thing in the room that has any real weight. This is the tactical embodiment of Machiavelli's lion and the fox. The lion uses brute force and noise to intimidate, but the fox uses cunning to recognize the traps and wait for the lion to exhaust himself. Machiavelli noted that a prince must know how to act both as the beast and as the man. Tommy Shelby uses the fox's cunning to create a void where Alfie expects a lion's roar. By the time Tommy finally speaks, the tempo of the interaction has been completely reset. He has regained the sovereignty of the room not by being louder, but by being more controlled. He understands that the person who reacts the least is the person who is pacing the interaction on their own terms. In your modern life, people will constantly try to dictate the rhythm of your day and your interactions. They will ask intrusive questions to put you on the defensive, or they will use urgent, high-energy language to force you into a quick decision. The common man is a slave to this rhythm. He dances to whatever tune is being played. To break this cycle, you must master the power of the non sequitur and the dead gaze. When someone asks you an intrusive question designed to probe your boundaries, do not answer it. Instead, ignore the question entirely and look at them with a dead gaze, a look that is devoid of any emotional warmth or hostility. Then, ask your own question, something that shifts the burden of explanation back onto them. Ask, why is that important to you? Or, what made you think that was an appropriate thing to ask? By doing this, you are effectively stopping their music and forcing them to dance to yours. The sovereign does not follow, he leads. He dictates the tempo of every conversation by his lack of reaction. If you want to command respect in a room, you must be the person whose internal rhythm is so strong that it overrides everyone else's. Practice this in your next high-stakes conversation. When the energy in the room gets loud and frantic, slow your movements down. Speak 10% slower than everyone else. Use the power of the pause to force others to wait for your words. You are not just communicating information. You are communicating that you are the one in control of the clock. You are the architect of the atmosphere. By breaking the rhythm of the masses, you establish yourself as a force of nature, something that cannot be predicted, cannot be controlled, and therefore must be respected. The world expects you to react. Disappoint them. Give them the void until they are exhausted, then give them the fire that reminds them exactly who you are. Gemini said, "The final ascent into the architecture of power brings us to the most formidable defense a sovereign can possess, the iron boundary of internal silence. To master the world outside, you must first master the riot of voices within. The common man is a victim of his own internal chatter. He is constantly debating his worth, rehearsing his excuses, and agonizing over the opinions of people who do not matter. But in the cold, calculated world of the Shelby family, the loudest room is the one inside your own head. If you cannot silence that, you can never hope to silence a room full of enemies. We see the ultimate manifestation of this internal sovereignty during Thomas Shelby's transition into the halls of Parliament, a world far removed from the smoke and steel of Birmingham, but one that is infinitely more treacherous. Picture the House of Commons, a place of ancient wood, stifling tradition, and the sharp, polished tongues of the British elite. Tommy Shelby walks these halls not as a guest, but as a member. He is surrounded by men who have been bred for power, men who look at his heritage with a mixture of fear and absolute disgust. As he moves through the corridors, the air is thick with the noise of elitism. There are slurs whispered behind hands, references to him being a gypsy, a bookmaker, and a gangster who has somehow stained the sanctity of their institution. The common man, in this position, would be vibrating with the need to prove himself. He would be loud, defensive, or perhaps overly eager to please, trying to wash the soot of Birmingham off his clothes with the borrowed perfumes of the upper class. But Thomas Shelby moves through these halls as if the walls themselves were speaking, not the people. He is internally insulated. He hears the insults, but they do not penetrate the internal citadel he has built around his ego. He does not quicken his pace, he does not sharpen his gaze in anger, and he does not offer a single word in self-defense. He treats the whispers of the elite as if they were nothing more than the rustle of dry leaves in the wind. This is the pinnacle of internal silence. Tommy understands that to explain yourself is to apologize for your existence. To defend your honor against a peasant's insult is to admit that the peasant has the power to wound you. By maintaining an iron boundary within, he forces the world outside to realize that their opinions are not just unwanted, they are irrelevant. He is a sovereign entity, and a sovereign does not seek validation from those he intends to rule. This internal discipline is the psychological realization of Niccolò Machiavelli's concept of propria arma, one's own arms. In The Prince, Machiavelli argues that a ruler who relies on the strength or the opinions of others is built on a foundation of sand. You must rely on your own internal strength, your own virtù, to maintain your state. If your peace of mind depends on the approval of the masses, you are not a prince. You are a slave to the public whim. Machiavelli understood that the loudest noise a man faces is the desire to be understood by his inferiors. By silencing this urge, Tommy Shelby achieves a level of self-sufficiency that makes him truly dangerous. He doesn't need the politicians to like him. He only needs them to realize that their noise has no effect on his trajectory. He relies on his own internal clock, his own internal moral code, and his own internal silence. In the modern landscape of high-performance careers and competitive social circles, the common man is drowning in internal noise. He is addicted to the need to explain. Every time someone misunderstands his intentions or questions his methods, he feels a frantic urge to clarify, to justify, and to win them over. He believes that if he can just explain himself well enough, he will be respected. He is wrong. In the Zadrez social, he who explains is weak. He who justifies is subordinate. To apply the iron boundary in your own life, you must eliminate the need to explain entirely. When you make a move that others don't understand, or when you face criticism that is designed to rattle you, do not open your mouth. Let your results be your only witness. Practice the cold comfort of self-sufficiency. If you know who you are and where you are going, the chatter of the masses becomes as significant as the buzzing of flies. The practical application of this level of control requires the implementation of what we call monk mode. For at least 2 hours every day, you must disconnect from the external world entirely. No phone, no music, no conversation. Sit in the silence of your own mind and confront the noise. Learn to observe your thoughts without reacting to them. This is how you build your internal citadel. Once you can sit in a room alone for an hour without the need for external distraction or validation, you will find that the noise of the office, the chaos of social media, and the provocations of your rivals no longer have any grip on you. You are mastering the silence within so that the noise outside can never penetrate your armor. You are becoming the man of power who commands internal order, which inevitably forces the world around him to fall into line. The sovereign does not seek peace. He commands it within himself. True control, as Thomas Shelby has demonstrated from the gutters of Birmingham to the halls of London, is never about the volume of your voice. It is about the chilling realization your opponent has when they realize their words no longer reach you. You have entered the realm of the untouchable. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the presence of absolute sovereignty. It is the final, most refined move in the Xadrez social played at the highest level. You have learned to answer with a void, to disconnect with indifference, to rule through absence, and to negate with disdain. You have broken the rhythm of the masses and built a boundary of iron around your soul. The journey from the common man to the sovereign of silence is now complete. You understand that power is a silent predator. It does not need to roar to be feared. It only needs to be felt. The world is full of people screaming for a moment of attention, trading their dignity for a flicker of recognition. You are no longer one of them. You are a ghost in the machine, a shadow that moves with purpose while the rest of the world babbles in the light. Your silence is now your scepter. As your final challenge, identify one person in your life today who drains your energy with their constant noise, their petty drama, or their demands for your attention. Ignore them, not out of a fit of pique or a momentary flash of anger, but out of a cold, calculated, and permanent indifference. Do not explain why you are doing it. Do not give them a warning. Simply move them into the category of irrelevance and watch how the power dynamic shifts in your favor instantly. When you stop reacting, they lose their power over you. When you stop speaking, they lose their measure of you. You are the architect of your own reality, and from this moment forward, you only allow in what serves your empire. The rest is just noise, and you are the master of the silence.